So this may be one of my more controversial episodes, and I know that. Um, but I want everybody just to keep an open mind, be fair, and even if you don't agree or if you feel like this is all just nonsense, then you don't have to listen. Or even if you don't listen, even if you do listen, rather, just try to take in a little bit of what I'm saying. So there's a lot of news right now, say about like Kanye West, right? And I know there's a lot of uh, popular opinion about him at the moment, and people have their feelings about him. But I kind of want to play devil's advocate a little bit because it's just like sometimes I feel like there are some unpopular opinions that people don't really look at with Kanye West. You know what I mean? Um, I am a black woman, so I'll start with that. So I'm not saying like I have the authority to speak on him, so I'm just saying that's the perspective I'm coming from. And I don't always feel like what he's saying is wrong, if that makes sense. I think sometimes if you look deeper into what he's saying, there you can make sense out of it. But then I guess you could say that about anything. Really, you can make sense out of anything if you really try. So I guess not only that, but at least to give him more of a shot. You know what I mean? Or not to just take it at face value. Try to see what is he saying, and then you can still not agree with that. You know, you even go back to like when he said that he tweeted his love for Trump. And it wasn't really a love for Trump. He was just saying like, yo, like I fuck with the dude. You know what I mean? And if you look at it now and people are looking at, with Biden and stuff, it's just like a lot of people are feeling like, yo, maybe we did make a mistake. But yet he was crucified at the moment for even acknowledging or bringing that up or saying that, like, saying anything in relation to supporting him. So even just saying he support him and the things that he said clearly in the interview, and I think that's why we have to be careful sometimes of how like the news construes a story or how they put it together or how they frame certain um, titles of or headlines and things like that, because language is so important. Because language will actually sometimes affect what you think about a piece. You know what I mean? Like if you write something in a certain tone, it definitely is going to persuade you to feel a certain way about a thing or about that topic. And I feel like they kind of crucified him a little bit because he said in interviews as well, like, listen, I don't agree with everything the man says. I don't agree with everything he says, but there's certain things that I understand and I respect that he brings it to the table. Is that not like what we do with most people? Because we don't like everything anybody says. And I feel like even with the presidency and things like that, we're really voting for, the better of two evils, if you will. So either way, it's you're like, okay, which one, won't do this or something like that. You know what I mean? But also to just be an individual and be like, it's okay to feel this way. And then I know he also made like the comment on slavery. And and that's why I think sometimes like in his delivery, I think he gets very like inside his head. And so when he's speaking on it, he speaks on it like from maybe like his perspective. And I don't want to say like in another universe, because not in a I don't want it to feel like I don't want to put like a tone of crazy on it. I don't feel like it's a tone of crazy, but sometimes like you get so deep into thought where it's just like like the way when you try to explain it, it may not come off the way you intend. And I believe that most people have been through that situation before. So I feel like with Kanye, sometimes he tries to go like very like, very meta, very like above and beyond, like, like universal with it, that the explanation sounds insane, you know? So when he said that, like, slavery was a choice, and I knew everybody was like in uproar, like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, this, what? They was not feeling it. I also get what he's saying though, when you think about 400 years, and I'm not saying that any of us could stood there and fight. But when he's saying that part of it was a mental enslavement too, because they didn't just physically have us enslaved, they mentally had us too. And I think that's the point he was trying to reach across, because right now we're even going through these times. Right now we're even experiencing these things, and it's more of a modern day slavery, if you will. Whether we want to acknowledge that or not, like, you know what I'm saying, like, you can look at the school systems and see that you clock in and you clock out at certain times. You report to certain people, their heads, you know what I mean. You have to hand this assignment in at a certain time. otherwise there are consequences, you know what I mean? It's just kind of just a building system to teach you how to work. And that's not really, I don't want to get into that. That's a whole nother conversation. But you can understand, and it being like us still being in sort of like a mental, not just, but like in this enclosure, and not understanding that like the battle is beyond just blaming, oh, this man or this person or that person. It's such a bigger fight. But my point in that is that sometimes when he says the comment now, like, slavery was a choice, it's just like, okay, there is a bigger picture that we do need to see. And whether or not, like, everything, again, so I'm going to say, like, how he said it. I don't agree with everything that he says, but I can see certain points, if you will. And I say this because now we have the White Lives Matter, and I know a lot of people feel indifferent about Candace Owens and Kanye West both alike. Sometimes, and I could get it, I think people feel like you have to totally agree. And I guess sometimes, if a person stands for something and you don't agree for what that person stands for, because that would be like, for the KKK or something like that. I also believe in your right to feel the way you feel, though. I believe in the right for you to have your own opinion. I believe in the right for you to want to, do certain things or bring your family or be in certain social events where you feel comfortable. As long as you're not affecting anybody else by doing that, as long as you're not going to harm somebody else in doing that, as long as you're not going to now be aggressive towards somebody else in doing that. You get what I'm saying? If that's how you feel and you stay in your lane, I guess, if you will, and you feel like that's how you want to operate, I can respect that, just depending on how you now depict yourself in public and how you deal with others. That would be my definition of how I'm going to look at you. My defining moment, if you will. So now with these Lives Matter t-shirts, I see a lot of people are up in a roar and they're like, oh my gosh, like, what are you talking about? But then you also gotta look at BLM and be like, do Black Lives Matter? They raised over, I think it was like, and I know Candace Owens had talked about this, they raised over like $90 million, and I think 60 million went into some type of assets. Then like 30 million went into like the stock market. But then they also spent like 6 million, no, maybe 42 went into assets, 30 million went into stocks, and then I think 6 million was spent like on a mansion. But none of this money has went into actual communities that need it. To after school programs, they need better tutoring sources, work ready programs for these kids who have, who deal with juvenile delinquency and stuff like that, starting from their young, the adults, the addicts and things like that when they come out of jail, more like programs to help them as well. So work ready is not only for the older, men and women, it's for the younger as well. And I think that's what people forget. It's a whole community. So the community is the youth and the elder, the older, whatever generation Z, whatever you want to call them, it's for everybody. That help was not given. Home, structure, something, benefits. And I'm not saying like everybody deserves it, but it's definitely a need for it. So where was that help? Where was that start? Where was that, like, okay, like that genesis of it? Where was that beginning? For all that money to have gone and not be able to be accounted for at first, and now being saying that in stock market and assets and mansions, and not actually to the cause. And that's what I say, we're used a lot to speak this narrative, to raise money, and we feed into this like, yes, it's for us. Like, no, sometimes we need to look further at the message. Are you really helping us? How are you helping us? What have you done for us lately? If you're familiar with that song, you know what I mean? And people don't get it, and I think that we have to just widen our eyes and like, don't look at Kanye and this because they tell us like, oh my God, you're supposed to feel outraged. Just don't feel outraged because they said so. Sometimes just take a step back and think about the bigger picture, because it's just like sometimes the message is not as clear. You got to kind of like look at it for yourself. You know what I mean? Look, like, dig a little hole. You know what I mean? See what's going on down there. Because they have used us time and time again, and a lot of the times where it's just it's good to we jump on it. We want to feel loved. It's like, that whole need of wanting to feel loved and wanting to feel welcomed and wanting to feel like we belong, where it's just like, no, we just need to stand in what we are. Stand in our own grace and our own beauty and our own everything. And not be so quick to jump on our own and jump on each other. Jump on people in general as human beings. So I'm not even going to make that a race thing. Just don't be quick to always feel like somebody has to be canceled or whatever case may be. I just want to briefly touch on that topic, and I don't want anybody to feel like I'm any this way or that way. I change my opinion, not change my opinion, but I go with the conversation. So whatever the conversation is, and when I look at that situation, if what feels right to me, that's what I speak on. You know what I mean? And I hope that this can be an open-minded thing and not just a judgmental thing, or like, how could you? And some people may still feel that way, and that's granted too. I can respect that totally. Um, but I do thank you for listening, and I apologize if you could hear the sirens in the background. Again, I hope you come back for another episode. I talk about different things, different topics all the time, sometimes personal, sometimes not. But thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.